Hello, hello everybody. Grandmaster Artur Neiksans is back as usual. Oh, just a second. Yeah, very happy to be back again. And hi Isaac. About the rooks on the second rank. Yeah, I guess there are gonna be some examples, but obviously when I was thinking about the topic of this bootcamp, hello Hadrik, I was definitely inspired by Della Villa's 100 endgames you should know. Right. So I was cross-checking whatever is mentioned in the book, and probably you already know that Chessable has released this wonderful course. They brought the book into a digital form, and actually some of the strongest grandmasters in the world, they have been trying to pass a test, so to speak, showing their knowledge, how well do they know the games. Yeah, and definitely some of the examples are going to be from the book. Hey, Ferocious Jester, how are you doing? Yeah, definitely. But I've read multiple times also the Redskins Endgame manual, so it's going to be something like a mix. It's entirely possible that some of the samples you have seen before. I'm sure that you're very qualified players and you've seen most of them. What I mean, you've seen before in one of my previous boot camps, because this is number 30, and I had a boot camp about the pawn end games. Just the pawn end games. I had a special boot camp about the rook end games. I had a boot camp about rook and against the bishop. Hey, pass pawn and GM, how are you doing? Happy to see you here. And so this is gonna be like, maybe I needed to start with this actually. Yeah, but anyway, better late than never. So it's gonna be like jack of all trades. I'll try to include everything. Maybe something is gonna overlap, but in general, I think these are the most important endgames that every self-respecting player should know. Right, let me check with what I could start with. Yeah, so maybe let's start with something basic. Yeah, 1 year. Yeah, 1 year. Past on. Yeah, that's crazy, right? Yeah, on this Sunday, I'll have the 1 year anniversary. That's incredible. I mean, time flies when having fun, obviously, and yeah, should be fun. So definitely look forward for the next year. Yeah, there's definitely gonna be arena. Definitely. Yeah. Anniversary arena or something, definitely with prizes. Yeah, just not clear yet what exactly prizes, but I'll try to make it as entertaining as possible. All right. So let me start with something very basic here. Um, how should I do it? Just a second. Let's start with some very basic stuff, which is the pawn endgames. About the pawn endgames, obviously, I had a separate bootcamp. So, very quickly, I'll just remind you, you already know this perfectly, that if white pushes forward the pawn, everybody knows, I assume everybody knows, that this position is easily drawing because the king goes straight back against the pawn, and normally it should end with a stalemate, right? Yeah, that's quite easy. So instead of this, the best strategy is considered to play for the opposition, and the opposition, let's say, starts this moment. White is to move here. King g5, king f7, and about this position, you probably know it by heart, is the one who move. Yeah, the king goes in front of the pawn. The one who moves is actually not winning, right? So if white is moving, then that's a draw. So king h5, king h7, g5, king g7, and we reach exactly this position. I know it's ridiculous, but I mean I have to start with this. So naturally, one of the most important things which we achieve when we are studying the endgames is not only we know the positions we are aiming for, also we know the positions which we should avoid. So for example, here we already know that g4, king g7, it also works vice versa. We have to avoid it. So we play king h6, king g8, g4. Here's the only tricky moment. Yeah, that you're just walking past. Yeah, king h6 exactly. Yeah, and you're winning. Right. All right, let me find another more tricky, not really tricky. I'll start with the simple ones and I'll end with the difficult ones. I like this approach. All right. So another one is gonna be very easy, but you'll understand why I'm showing this to you. So let's say this position. Everybody who sees this position, wait a second, this is an easy draw. I don't argue. That's the wrong corner. That's the H pawn. And white cannot progress because black king goes back in the corner and normally it should end with a stalemate. So that's a draw. Now instead of this, let me now show you another example and you'll understand what I'm aiming at. Just a second. Just a second, where is it? I'm supposed to... Alright. So this position. Why it's important? Hello, Destiny Dragon. Why this was important? Because again, I think it starts with the basics. So you know the basic endgame, and you know that you can go there. So for example, I know many not really so strong players, they know the concept of the wrong square perfectly, but for some reason, when you're playing a game, you have a chance to reach this position. Suddenly it's difficult to recognize. For example, this game was played between Levon Aronian. It was Magnus Carlsen with white and Levon Aronian was playing with black. They played this rapid game. And when we have a look at this position, so what's the first thing you see? You don't see the endgame, right? You see the position. I think an experienced player probably will tell, there's no way I'm playing this for the win, black, right? So white has the outside passed pawn. It can be pushed as far as a7. Maybe it will cost black a piece. So Carlsen, I'm sorry, it was Aronian. Yeah, keep mixing who was playing with white and black. So Aronian playing with black recognized the danger of this passed pawn. So what he did? Instead, he traded rooks. And now we already recognize the rising position. Again, probably it's simple, but maybe for somebody it's not. So this is the wrong corner. We see already this is the wrong corner, and the sooner you notice this, the better. So instead, I've seen multiple occasions when a weaker opponents, let's say, they would be thinking, oh, wait a second, so white is marching forward to the queens with his pawn, I have to stop it. So natural reaction would be something like king d5. Let's say, I don't know, something like a5, king c6. I don't know, something like here, bishop b6, here. And suddenly, oopsie daisy, black is losing. I mean, how comes? How comes? Because I was trying to stop this pawn. So, okay, this is a very dumbed down example, but I've seen it so many times. So that's why it's important to study the endgames. You recognize already the endgame pattern and you see, so this is the wrong corner. So all I have to do is eliminate this g3 pawn and hide a king in the queenside corner. That's it. So that's exactly what Aronian did. See, he played knight f3, knight h2. Knight f1, knight g3 is impossible to stop. And the game ended. Yeah, okay, knight f3 was some kind of inside joke. I don't know what it was. And the simplest way here already was playing knight f3, knight g3, and draw grid. So that's another simple example how having the knowledge of even simple endgames allow you make easy decisions during the game. Alright, now let me show you another ridiculously simple example. I'm gonna use the same concept of the wrong corner, right corner, but this time it's gonna be slightly different. Alright, let me make it like this. Alright, king goes here, king goes here, king goes here, bishop goes here. So this time, no, Aronian wasn't trying to win it because he recognized the danger. I mean, white has the strong passed pawn. His kingside pawns are not moving anywhere, so he realized, I'm not the one playing for the win. He could have tried to march, but that would complicate the matters. Instead, he fixed a draw in a position where probably only him is risking to lose. So we have this position. Again, very easy. So that's the right corner, right? So that is the right corner, and white inevitably is going to advance forward. h7, there's no stalemate idea, and white easily wins this. So why this is important? Why this is important? Now we have this position. Do you know this position? If you have studied De La Villa's 100 Endgames that you should know, you probably will recognize this. But this is one of the rare examples where the stronger side cannot win. So for example, I could try to play from the white's perspective. I'll play king f6. Of course, black is not going to play king h8, king f7, checkmate. King f8, here, king g8, king f8. That's it. This is a fortress. I'm not sure if you knew it, probably you did, but I think this is rather interesting exception. And there's one very important note. The white pawn, has to stand on h6. On h5, it's lost, because on h5, king h6, the black king is inevitably in a zugzwang. I'll show you another example. Another example is we have exactly the same position. And this time we have this bishop. Yeah, okay, this is easy. So this is easy because it's still the wrong corner. I'm gonna play king h8, nothing changes. Alright, what about this one? Again, it's important to know as many endgames as possible, because let's say you are in time trouble, you're playing a game, and you see this opportunity to reach this exact endgame, but you have no clue, is this a draw or not? And I'll tell you, if I remember this, I had once very funny experience about this matter. I was playing a classical game against one of the strongest Russian grandmasters. I mean, he was European champion at the time, Ernesto Inarkiev. And I reached the position. I could go there, but I didn't know. Is that a theoretical draw or not? I had a suspicion it's a draw. I just didn't know it. So now I know it. Now I've studied. Not this one, of course. This is easy, yeah. But I'll show you later. Good evening, Marco. How are you doing? So this is still a draw because white cannot progress. No matter how many times you would try it, white cannot progress. All right, let me show you different positions. Now this time I'm gonna slightly upgrade it, the difficulty, and let's do it like this. So we have this position and the bishop on g7, or maybe bishop f7, doesn't matter. Yeah, let's start with the bishop g7. Hello, Arturs, you're from Brazil. All right. You don't speak Latin. That would be surprising if you were actually speaking Latvian. I don't speak Portuguese as well, by the way. So this position also apparently is a draw. with a bishop, dark square bishop, light square bishop, nothing changes. So white cannot progress. So I think the best chance here is for white to do something like this. Here, here, whoops, a mouse slip. So this is a mouse slip apparently, right? I mean, the idea is g takes, king f7, white wins. But after bishop f6, black simply plays king g8. It's so easy. King g8, king h8, king g8, king h8. That's it. This is an easy draw. All right. So the same position we can reach with the light square bishops. Now this is going to be a fun part actually. So we have this position and the light square bishop. This is a draw because white cannot progress, black simply plays, even he can go to the corner, doesn't change anything. But now I'm going to show you one very interesting game. This game in particular was played between Giri and Samuel Shankland. Maybe you already know this, maybe you don't. Just a second, where was this? So we reach this position. So Anish Giri was playing against Samuel Shankland in the, which year was it? 2019? I don't remember. Weekend's Tata Steel Chess Super Tournament. So they had this position. From afar, it seems nothing, right? I mean, okay, well, there's not a theoretical position here because white obviously is pushing. It might not be obvious because the white pawns are doubled at the queen side, but those weak pawns at the king side that black has on h6 and g5, very likely they're about to fall. Now check what happened in the game. So Anish played bishop f8, knight h4, grab the pawn, knight f3. Obviously black is trying to survive. He's trying to trade off this last pawn on h2 and then try to hold some kind of a fortress at the queen side. h3, grab, bishop e3, king d6, and king f5. Seemingly, the knight is trapped. And now the funny part. King d5. Black is trying to eliminate those pawns. Anish Giri played b6. The game seemingly over, right? Here, black resigned. Now the question is, do you see something very similar here to what I just showed you? So from black's perspective, he's thinking, the knight is trapped. I cannot go king c4, king b4, try to trade these pawns. This is a draw. This is a draw because we already know this previous example I showed to you. You don't even need a b4 pawn. So that's a simple draw. So black actually should play king d6. Yes, hey Flash Shivam, he's asking if I have a YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. I can post you the link here. It's relatively small at the moment, but I would appreciate if you would give it a follow. I'm planning to expand it at some time, very near time, I guess. Yeah, so the easiest draw here is king c6, or maybe even king d6. Yeah, king d6, king g4, king d7, king h3, king c8. And when you say like this, it's, oh, right, yeah, right, it's this position. Because when you have it on the board, it's suddenly easy to recognize. But in the middle of the game, I imagine it's difficult for a practical player when you've been playing for 5-6 hours. Suddenly, I call it a switch. You switch the calculation mode from a calculation mode to structural thinking. And here, I think Shankland is an excellent player. He probably knew that game. Yeah, he blundered us. I think he just didn't think about this. Yes, this was quite incredible blunder. I mean, he's such a strong player, obviously. Like, he's the elite. and yet he missed it. But you know, the interesting part is Giri knew this. He knew this. He played b6. He recognized this position to be a draw. And he played b6, the best chance. Maybe my opponent will misplay this. And you can imagine the surprise when indeed black resigned. So that was quite incredible. But you know, I'll tell you this, stranger things have happened before. So definitely this is something that Sam probably wants to forget. Our point is, I wanted to show you this as an example that you could actually use the practical knowledge in real games. So you recognize a rising structure, maybe even as far as here. Maybe even as far as here. You'd have to recognize a very skilled player that probably you lose both H and G pawns against the H2 pawn. And then you play King D7, King C8, but only if White has played B6 himself. Because if White hasn't played B6 himself, obviously you cannot do that. Because then the White King gets through the B6 square. I'm pretty sure Giri knew this already around here. So that was quite unexpected, but yeah, I guess it was surprising. All right, let me show you more. So continuing about this topic about the G pawns and B pawns, or so-called knight pawns, I'll show you one more example. Just a second. Let me try it like this. Here, here, here. Now about this position. About this one. What do you think? What do you think should be the outcome of the game? Because we already recognize the previous positions with the bishops. Yeah, unfortunately, Sam was on the receiving side. He didn't recognize the endgame. Both dark square bishops, both light square bishops, just one of them obviously, on the board, this would be a draw. But what about the knight? What about the knight? Any ideas? That's very good, Aska. That's very good. Yeah, put the knight on f6 when the king is on h8. Exactly. Yeah, so that's what you do. You play it here. Knight goes. What's the fastest way? It doesn't really matter. Here, here, and knight f6. Yeah, knight f6, and you have to take it. Yes, because the king is in the Zugzwang, right? So again, I think that's yet another reason why endgame studies require special devotion, because these are the things you'll never see in an opening phase. You'll never see in the middle game, very rarely. What I mean is Zugzwang, there's no moves. What I mean is various these tricks which are not available in middle games, they are available in endgame. So exactly here after knight f6, g takes, king f7, white simply queens. And because of the pawn on f6, black is not in the stalemate. Another example, let's move on, is about the squares. And this, I think I mentioned already in one of my previous bootcamps. I think it was about the pawn in games, but still I think it's a good idea to remind. Let's say this one. So what is the move? I suggest you, when you're dealing with pawns, a pawn race, try to think in terms of the square. So for example here, no, this is not a draw. This is not a draw, Arturs. So what's a square? h4, king c7. And I imagine it could be difficult for you. Let's say you're in the middle of a big time trouble and you need to calculate this. this is very basic endgame, but there are gonna be much more difficult than this. And you could do it like this. Here, 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 here. Oh, I made it. I made it. That's how you shouldn't calculate. So there's one very simple rule, is the square. So what's a square? You simply draw a square by drawing the diagonal first. So h4 pawn reaches d8. And the rule is simple. If the black king is not in the square, he is not in time. It's very simple, so you can check it. Here, h5, I don't need even to check it, because I already know this. It's simple geometry. You cannot make it in time. So let me try to play it differently. Instead of this, let's say I played king b2. Marco is rating us with a party of 1. Thank you. Yeah, and now this is a square. h4. Let me draw it again. And that's it. That's it. The black king is in the square. And you don't need to calculate this from afar. You just draw the diagonal. You check it very quickly. It is in the square, so this is a draw. It's going to save you a lot of time. All right. Next example. This is something I already showed before, I think. Sounds very familiar. We have this position, and this position is gonna be very, very important. So for example, we have this one. White obviously is marching forward, black is marching back, and this is what we call a floating square. So what is a floating square? The distance from the pawns. And let's say you would have this position. You could get this position, and you have seconds on the clock. Can you go there? And now, can you raise a hand? Who can calculate this? Let's say you have 30 seconds on the clock and you have to calculate. Can I go for this position? Can I not go for this position? So there is a simple rule. If you don't know this rule, if you don't know the rule about the floating square, you cannot go here because you'll be gambling. Maybe you'll gamble it right. Yeah, this is just an example. This is not a game. This is not a game. No, white wins. White wins here. So how we define what is the rule of the floating square? Hey, thank you, MD Knight, for your sub. I appreciate that. So what is the floating square? This is the floating square. And there's one simple rule you should know. If the floating square doesn't reach the final line, white is winning. So this is the final line. I can check it very easily. So white is to move here. I'm playing king d4. Oh, what did I do? Sorry. I should have started it, yeah. So I'm playing king d4. So since the king and the floating square didn't reach the final rank, white is winning. So let's say we try now play a4. King d5, a3. Now that would be a big mistake. Even though I make it in the square, the king is behind a pawn. Yeah, it must be A and D. It could be B and E pawn as well. I mean, it really depends on the position. So after a4, king c3. Let's say a3, d4, d3. The king is in the square. But I mean, you don't even need to calculate this. You already recognize. You recognize from afar. So let's say you have little time on the clock, so you just recognize. The floating square doesn't reach the final rank. These pawns, they're taking care of each other. So black, he cannot take the pawn on g5, otherwise the h pawn of whites is gonna advance to queens. So he's just sitting and doing nothing there. So your king is gonna take care of the a pawn and d pawn. So this is interesting. Now let me show you another example. If I had the e pawn instead of the d pawn, Isaac, I'm not so sure. It really depends where they're standing. About the e-pawn and d-pawn, let me check. I think it was drawish, but really depends at which moment it was. So let's say we have this position. It was in the Davila's book. It was in Dvoretsky's Endgame manual. So you're referring to this one. I think this is a draw. I think so, unless I'm mistaken, because white cannot progress to the pawns, and floating square doesn't reach the final rank. So I could check it, of course. I mean, I can check it very quickly. King c5, a5. Yeah, white is winning. No, I'm sorry, white is winning. My bad. It's not a draw, white is winning. Yeah, because white is in the square. I can select a different position. Let's say we can do the same. And we have, let's say, this position. So now we draw the floating square. And white is to move. And white loses. From raid, can the white king be anywhere inside the floating square? It really depends. It really depends. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a universal rule. Hello, Zora. But this will help you to make those decisions. If you recognize the rule that the floating square cannot reach the final rank, it's going to be easier for you. There are various examples. Your king can be closer, your king can be further. There can be a pawn and d pawn. There can be b pawn and e pawn. The black king could be also helping to change something. It's not going to be always the same, but the rule is going to be throughout the same. For example, a slightly different position would be, very quickly, I'll select it for you. Let's say a slightly different position would be this one. So we have the same position, and this is quite interesting one. Thank you, Sykes, appreciate that. Now this is another interesting exception. It's paradoxical, actually. The closer are the pawns, they're how to speak, I mean, A and C pawn are impossible to conquer for the opposing king. A and D pawn, if they're not reaching as a floating square the final rank, it's losing for black. This one is a draw. This is paradoxical, really. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. So the idea is, if white is going to play king c4, a4, king c3, king h7, king b2, c4. And this ends with a draw, unless somebody seriously misplays it. Let's say king a3, c3, king a2, king g6, and white already has to make a draw. He cannot play king b1. King b1 would be a terrible mistake. So after king b1, a3, white is in a zugzwang. You know, what's a zugzwang? So that's the position where you would want to slam on the desk and say, it's your turn, right? I'm not going to move. You're going to do that, obviously. I mean, you have to move. And in endgames, sometimes this ability to move is killing. Imagine yourself how everything you know about endgames would change if you have the opportunity just not to move. Just don't move. I just press the clock. It's your turn. You would over-evaluate many endgames. Probably every single pawn endgame would be drawish. There would be no opposition. You just sit there and do nothing. But I mean, you have to move. Yeah, so you're gonna do this, obviously. Yeah, it's all about the tempos, exactly. So of course, white didn't have to do this. So let's say king c4 or king a4. This is an important position you should know. So let's say I could select you a different position. Let's say this one. I have these pawns here, here, and the white king is going to be far away. And black is the move. despite the fact that the white king is so far away. Black cannot do anything. So king f3, he cannot even... Okay, this is not a good example. I should have put it on the third rank. But let's say h3. Here, here, and now what do? Yeah, king c6 maybe already wins, but the point is you recognize this idea, this pattern, f3, and you keep the black king at bay. So king h4, f4, here, 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 and here. So the pawns, they can take a good care of each other. So they basically don't need a king. So this is quite paradoxical. Let me show you why this knowledge could help you in a game. Now I'm going to compose you a position. It's a similar to a position which was played by the former world FIDE champ Alexander Halefman. It's going to be something like this. I already don't remember it very well. Maybe it was like this, this. The pawn is on e5. Here. Maybe it should start with something like this. Yeah, let me put the pawn on c7 because it doesn't matter. Now, I would ask you a question here. So white is the move. I would ask you a question here. Can I play king e4, king f6, h6, sacrifice the pawn, and try to somehow capitalize on those strong passed pawns? And imagine yourself, you have this position, and you just, oh my goodness, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. It's very difficult. So maybe this would end with a draw. Yeah, maybe here not, because black will simply play king f6 and force you to play king e4. And yeah, you're just going to be back at the idea of playing h6. The f-pawn looks strong. Yeah, but what about what we just learned about this rule? So king e4, king f6, h6, g takes, king f3, h5. Now, what do you do? What do you know about floating square? So what is a floating square here? It's slightly difficult, but it's there. Hey, Pepper! Hello there. Let me draw it for you. You see this position. This is not a draw. White is winning. White is winning. Now this is paradoxical, and you cannot really guess it if you don't know the rule, but at least you know that you can safely go here. Yeah, so king g3, king goes here. Now seemingly everything's okay. Let's say I'll play king h4, king h6, everything is good. Yeah, black is seemingly alive. Another important rule. I'm sorry, I'm Leduc. I didn't understand your question. Another important rule about the endgames is one of the finest techniques is the so-called triangulation, giving away a tempo for free. So what do we do? I play here. So the idea is to meet king h6, king h4. The pawn moved like the bishop. I think that was the pawn takes, g takes on h6. If it takes, it can move like a bishop, as far as I know. Yeah, so king h6. Now, if black is going to play here, the e4 pawn is lost. You're going to play king g5. The g pawn is going to advance. Exactly, yeah. So h4, I'm still in the square. King f4, I'm still in the square. So the square rule always works. So you don't need to calculate here, 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 here. Now let's go back. After king h6, king h4, what black could do? I can give away a tempo. Hey, mate illegal. I built yet another triangle. King g3, king h3. What do you do? King h6, king h4, c6, king g3, king g7, king h3. That's it. Black has simply run out of the moves. And after, let's say, king f6, king h4, e4, king g3. We win this pawn. We win this pawn. And essentially the game. It might seem, yeah, okay, this is very much advanced. But let's go back. Let's go back and recognize this position from afar. Can you calculate this? Yeah, okay, maybe it's not so easy. But what you can recognize is the floating square. Is what you understand is that after h6 and h5, it doesn't reach the final rank. And you should be knowing, oh, wait a second, I think I have some good chances here. I mean, it's possible there might be some other factors involved, like the passed pawns on the other side, some differences, so not always it's gonna work, but let's say in situation like this, it is working. So let's say how we could misplay this. Now, a terrible move would be king of 2. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, I just want to show it to you. h4? Oh, wait, it still wins, sorry. Let's say king e2. Now, what we see, what has changed in the position is the floating square is reaching the final rank. No, we push it. We push the h-pawn. I just want to mention is that you cannot calculate this in your head. I mean, let's say you have something like even 5 minutes on the clock. Can you really calculate it so far? Your rule, what you know, will allow you to make this decision. All right. About the opposition, I slightly touched it, but actually, those who are following how I was doing puzzles this Wednesday, I had a wonderful example. Let me show it to you. So we have this position. King is here, 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 and here. Now this is a lovely example. I just love it. And now the question is, what do we do here? So one of the most important principles in the pawn endgames is the power, hey Alberto, is the power of the outside pawns. So let's say king f3. Now that would be a terrible mistake. King f3, king f5. Black is going to trade the g pawn for the e pawn. So let's say something like e4, here, 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 and that's it. The black king will just collect those pawns at the queen set, and that's it. I mean, simply easily winning endgame. So we obviously don't want to do that. So what do? We trade this pawn. King f6 and king e3. Now the question is, if you know, now this is a funny example because I failed it myself. I just didn't realize there's a trick. What's the most natural move here? So you have this position and you have some good understanding about shouldering. So what is a shouldering? Shouldering is using your king as a piece and take away important squares from your opponent. Probably it's king most of the time. So let's say, yep, king e5, right? Yeah. That's the natural choice. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. Yeah, king e7. Thank you, MK. How do I spell that? Yeah, that's absolutely correct. But why king e7? It's not obvious, right? Let me show you why. So king e5, king d5 and king c6. So the idea is this. If black is going to play here, this obviously loses for black because white just collects the pawn. So after king b7, king a4, black is smart. But white also is not born yesterday. So after king a6, what black has? A Zugzwang. So this is yet another Zugzwang. I want to hit on the desk and say, it's your turn. You're gonna do that. You have to move. So after king a3, king a7, white wins. So let me go back. Black can be smart about this. So instead, he can go king c4. Now white is in a Zugzwang. King b7, king b5, it's just going to be a draw. And this already is the best option. But after a4, now you see this is no longer an option. Because white is again in a Zugzwang and actually is losing the game. Let's go back. King e5 doesn't work. So what if we try king e6? Do you know what we call this? This is the opposition. The opposition rule. So black makes an opposition. There's nothing white can do. It just doesn't work. And it's exactly the same line. So that's why the right move here is king e7. And this, this is what we call it, a distant opposition. A 2-square difference from the king. And probably in my career, I've had very few experiences when I have to use the opposing opposition. But what is the distant? I'm sorry, not opposing opposition, but the distant opposition. But normally it should transpose to the normal opposition. So what's the point? Why we are using the distant opposition? So let's say black is gonna go now king e4. Opposition. Here, and now black is in the Zugzwang. So after king b3, king b7, king a4, king a6, we finally reach the position which we want. All right, so black would be smart about this. He could try to play king d4, or maybe let's say king d3. Yeah, king d3. That's very tricky. Distant opposition. King d4. Yet another trick. King d6 opposition. King c4, king c6 opposition. There's nothing black can do. So this is a lovely example. I actually failed it. I very quickly played king e5. I didn't realize there was a trick. Yeah, but normally, of course, I do know myself the distant opposition and the rules of the opposition. All right, next one. We have quite a number of examples. So at the moment it's pawn endgames. We have, let's say, I'll show you this position. Let's say you have this position with black. You see that you can trade the rooks. Will you? Can you? Should you? So rook a7, king e8, rook e7, king e7. White has the strong pass pawn. Can you actually go here? Do you know this position or not? So if you don't know this, this could be very, very difficult for you to make the right decision. Yeah, rook a7, Arturs, exactly. So you have to play rook a7. If you know that this is a drawn endgame, you recognize the position. This is an easy decision for you. So let me turn it around. Rook a7, trade, king g7. And this is one of the paradoxical positions where white cannot progress. But it only works with a pawn on h5 and pawn on g6. That's it. That's pretty much it. I mean, okay, with the pawn on h6 and g7, that's very easy draw. But this is, I've seen people misplaying this all the time. So let's say king g8, king e6, king g8. Here, it even doesn't matter. Even doesn't matter where you play. I mean, you could even play king h8. There's no tricks, no nothing. So after g6, you can even choose between king g8 and king h7. King h7, that's a funny way to end the game, because after king f7, that's a stalemate. So you should already recognize this is one of the most important exceptions of the pawn endgames. This is a draw. So you can safely trade the rooks. If you don't know this, it's going to be like I explained this. I'm going to show you that example later against the Narkiyev. I was playing, I just don't know. Can I? Don't I? I feel this is a theoretical position, but I'm not sure. Yeah. All right. The next example is going to be this one. Now, I'm going to probably do it the same. Can black trade rooks? Is it the same? I sort of already told something before. No trade, yeah, no trade. Yeah, but if you don't know it, you could very easily mix it up. Yeah, so trading leads to lost position. I remember this example from the Veresca's Endgame manual. I don't think De La Villa had it. No, you cannot. Yeah, pass pawn, you cannot trade it. But there's one trick. There's one trick I would like to show you. Just a second. Yeah, king f7. It's still going to be all about the opposition. And what you don't want to do, you don't want to play g6. And this is something you should recognize. g6, king h6, and oh no. Oh no. So king f6 ends with a stalemate. You're going to do that. So the right approach is try to use the opposition. King e5 instead. So these triangulations and setting oppositions for the opposing king is a very common theme. So let's say king g6, king e6. Black would be smart about this. Play king h7, inviting you play king f5, but you already play king f6, and that's it. You just collect a pawn or safely even play g6, king g5, and that's it. This should be an easy win for you. All right. Oh, while I remember, I think I'm gonna be touching Rook endgames very, very shortly, but there's one position which really bugs me. I'll show you a game. It was a blitz game. I was witnessing. It was played something like this. It's gonna be difficult for me to reconstruct the entire game. I'm just showing it approximately from the memory. So the idea was this. White has the extra pawn. He recently played g6, and the idea is force black to go to the pawn endgame. So what black naturally did, he was trying to defend against it. So that's a threat. White was trying to trade. White was trying to trade. I don't know. Yeah, I already don't remember exactly. So at one moment, it finished like this. Here. Whoops. White simply promotes. Okay, maybe here, yeah, there's check, check, check. And black actually is in time, but that was the idea. That was the idea. Just want to show you the idea. And after g takes, g7, yeah, here, specifically here, we cannot do this. Yeah, I guess I selected the wrong example. But maybe there's something wrong with the entire approach. Can black really not trade the rooks? What about the pawn on h5 and g6? And this is an easy draw, apparently. So instead of this, what black would have done, just play king h8. Just pretend there's nothing. So king goes here, here, rook e8. This is yet another important endgame that you should know. The point is, after h6, black is not obliged to take. And this is going to be very similar to the endgame, where we had the bishop on f6, offering black to take the bishop on f6, and black simply doesn't take it. He just plays king g8. h7, king h8, and that's a stalemate. So white cannot progress. In the game, black missed that. I was so surprised. I was so surprised that black didn't see that. Didn't know the idea. The same position can be reached, not reached, but very similar position, is when we have, let's say, these pawns. This was actually my game against Michael Royce. We were playing in the long time ago World Junior Championships. Yeah, I think so. Maybe it was Youth Championships. Doesn't matter. A long time ago. Now he is a famous chess coach, and he was trying to push me for the win. This position. So what we already know, after g6, if white is going to play g6, it's easy to draw. Just play king h8. Yeah, there's nothing even to see here. But what about the pawn on g5? All you need to do is be ready in time to play king f7. And the simple rule is never allow the white king to get to the g6 square. So, king f7, here, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Here you can set up the distant opposition. Here, here, here. And the trick is to play g6, king g7, and transpose to a drawn endgame. h6. This is going to be easy draw. I didn't show this in the beginning. Just a second. I have a cat gambit here. Cat is gone. So this is an easy endgame because the black king is hiding on h8, and after h7, king h8, that's going to be a stalemate. So white cannot progress. So what you don't want to do is you don't want the white king to get to the g6 square. So that's definitely not. And after king g6, king h8, probably here, here, and now you have to take. And g takes g7, the white simply wins in a couple of moves. All right. Cat sacrificed, yeah. The cat was sacrificed. Nah, he's gonna come back, don't worry about him. Alright, let's move on. And now I'm gonna show you a couple of another important endgames. It's easy, but you won't believe how many people are misplaying this. So we have the king, rook against the king, and the bishop. Hey Paul, thank you for the raid of 46, appreciate that, really. How are you doing? So I'm Latvian Grandmaster Arturs Neiksans, and I'm doing my bootcamp about essential endgames. So usually I do it something like once every 2 weeks. So that was Paul. Just a second. And I hope you like it here. Me and Paul were actually having an adoption match. We had Sabal some time ago, so that was super fun. Hope you had a great stream. Right. So about this position. This is obvious draw. So when you see an opportunity to go for this endgame, don't hesitate. It's easy. All you need to do is go to the right corner. And you know, this is quite fascinating because I've seen people, even good players, playing blitz, still hesitating about the decisions. There's no tricks. The bonkload Sabal, yeah, Paul was bonkloading us the entire Sabal. No, Mukaluk, I adopted him. So the right approach here is Kingy. I'm sorry, yeah. Who is the move here? You want to position the king in the right corner. So the idea, don't make obviously any suicide like this. Yeah, that would be terrible. But the idea is to hide the king here, the bishop in front. And this is very important. Don't mix up with the other corner. So where's the idea? Again, king goes here, here. This is a stalemate. So this is the reason why we are hiding in the corner. If you feel yourself comfortable hiding with not hiding, but walking in the middle of the board, trying to avoid getting cornered, you can do that. But this is such an easy defense. There is no tricks, no nothing, not Zugzwang. I can guarantee you this. People are checking it over and over again. Am I missing something? Is there a Zugzwang? Let's say King G5, King G7, check here, King H6. There's no Zugzwang. Don't worry about this. So again, check, bishop goes back, frontal check here. As long as you're not missing something as ridiculous like bishop f7 or like a simple piece drop or like a mate in one or something, you're going to be easily holding this. Just remember, the bishop always is protecting the king and the big motive is the stalemate. So king h8, bishop g8, you go to the, how do I call it, the wrong corner of the bishop. That's it. Another simple endgame is the same king and rook against king and the knight. This is again yet another interesting, it's obvious draw, but there's just one rule. There's just one rule. Keep your king always close to the knight. That's it. That's all you need to know. Don't venture with the knight somewhere far away, and definitely don't go to the corner. Yeah, you don't want to go to the corner this time, so don't mix it up. With a bishop, you're going to the right corner. There's no stalemate ideas, no nothing. There's obviously stalemate ideas, but no Zugzwang ideas for your opponent. And different it is with the knight. So you're just marching here and there. Don't blunder the knight. And it's very, very easy draw. All right. Now let me show you why the opposite corner for the bishop is wrong. So let's say we have this position. Let me put it somewhere here. Thank you, Race, for the prize. Appreciate for your sub. How are you doing? So Rook, let me put it here. So Rook, f8 check, bishop goes here. You might seem, wait, this is still a draw, right? I'm in the corner. You have one little problem here. It's the A8 square. So after whatever move, king c6, rook e8, rook d8, this is what we call it again at Zugzwang. You have to move. If you would have this magic wand, you could just sit and do nothing. This would be obviously a draw. And like I said before, that would be actually interesting. How many rules of chess would change that you would have this opportunity to just sit and do nothing? How many positions would have to be re-evaluated? Here, this is not the option. So, king a8, rook c8, and what wins? This is easy, but you're going to need this in the next example. So the next example is another famous endgame. And it's going to be rook versus bishop. Now, if you don't know, Arturs says it happens and go. What happens and go? So if you don't know this previous rule, it's going to be very difficult for you to try to win this. So the first obvious question here is, why even I bother? I mean, why cannot play simply king h6? King h6, g7, just promote. It's the pass rule. Okay. Check. Go back. How do you progress? So here the critical rule is g7. The wrong corner rule. Okay. Hey, Domjan. So the idea is after bishop g7, you already recognize that the opposing king is in the wrong corner. So that's it. I'm going to play rook b8. He's going to be in Zugzwang. He'll have to move. And we just win the game. Instead of this, black plays king h7. Now that's a very smart defense. Now the question is, do you know the exact technique how to win this one? Because this is a very famous position. It starts, obviously, with fixing the black king in the wrong corner. So playing immediately g8, now that would be a terrible mistake. King g8, king g6, I want to mate bishop c5, that would be a return gift. Yeah, but king f8, this is a draw. So the king is heading here, the bishop is going to be in front of it. That's it, you already know this, you already know how to draw this. Instead of this, there's one little move you should know here. You want to keep the black king in the wrong corner. Rook f7, not a very obvious move. So you might say, wait, where's the big idea here? So let's say bishop takes on g7, king g5, black has to move, king g6, and that's it. That's it. The king, the opposing king, is imprisoned in the wrong corner. So let's say he plays here, 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 and you have to move. That's it. That's it. So you already know this, and this is winning. There might be different cases, of course. Let's say there could be something similar like this. We have this position. And again, from afar, let's say you see you can reach this position. I mean, it could be also e pawn, d pawn. Yeah, I think so. That was very, very similar. Although not always they work the same, but the rule always is going to be the same. Very similar at least. So again, the same idea is here. King g6 is going to be bishop d3 check. Now the obvious question is, can I try to play f7? I don't even need the wrong corner, right? Because after bishop takes on f7, king f6, thank you for the game. Yeah, we're just winning. Black again has to move. He loses the bishop. Instead, here black actually manages to save the game because of king g7. King g7, next move, take the bishop, and now this idea doesn't work because the black king is not in the corner. So let's say I give a check. You already know that the corner is safe. That's the right corner for your king. So you simply play king h8 and whatever, bishop g8. That's it. Bishop g8. Here, he might try to play some tricks. Don't worry, there's nothing. The king always is marching back. Alright, let me add an h-pawn. So we have this position. This time, let's say the king is in the right corner. But there's an h-pawn. Now the question is, do you know, is this winning for white or this is a draw? This is, I don't think this is from De La Villa's One King in Endgames You Should Know. This is from straight from Dvoretsky's Endgame manual. Yeah, I don't remember that it was in the De La Villa's book. Very good, Askov. Very good. Yes, very good. With h5 and h6, that's a draw. Very good. With the pawn on h4, it's a winning. But do you know why? So let me show you what happens if white is oblivious. What's happening here? So he's just marching forward the pawn. I mean, why wouldn't want you to march forward the pawn? So let's h5. Draw. This already is a draw. So king g8. I'm sorry, I think I misplayed it. Sorry. Yeah, bishop c2 obviously. So the rule is you always want to keep the bishop on this diagonal. So let's say I'm still pushing. I don't know what's happening here. Do you recognize this endgame? You already know this. You already know this is an easy draw because the king is in the right corner. Alright, white won't give it up. So I'll try to play here. Now, the only thing you don't want to do, this is a terrible mistake. Now that's the only thing you don't want to do. And why is that? Your bishop can never leave the b1 h7 diagonal. You just did. You just left it. So this is going to be a very nice win. I'm going to show you from a different perspective. Instead of this, after king f6, bishop d3, king f6, just wait. You have many squares to wait. King f7 doesn't matter. I mean, just wait. As long as after h7, of course, you're not falling for some cheap tricks. Bishop h7, rook a8. Yeah, just watch out, of course. King h7. Yeah, there's no ideas because you're giving a check and always you're going back to the corner. So where's the win? Where's the win? So the win was, let's say black is keeping the bishop. Let me give it like this. So black is keeping the bishop on this long diagonal. Black plays king g8. Check. And you already know that the bishop has to stay on the long diagonal. Why cannot play king h8? Because you're forced to leave it. And now after bishop b3, check. Now this is a very nice technique. King g5. Check. One mistake. h5. Oh wait, the h5 is still winning. Just a second. Yeah, I wanted to show you that the h5 is a draw, but here it's apparently winning. King g6. Let me make it another tricky move. Now h5, you would just ruin the game. That's again a draw. You allow the bishop to place on this diagonal and the king goes away. So instead of this, we are giving a frontal check. We are taking away the square on e4 and just push it forward. So he is again attacking me to give a check. Check. We take it away. We are threatening with a mate on the last rank. So bishop c2 is unavailable. So after king h8, what you do? h6. Another attempt. Probably the simplest is check. And here. And after king h8, h7. That's it. This is the trick to all you need to know. So it starts by playing king g6, watching out from these checks. Now you give a check, defend against this check, and threaten with a mate. And when the king goes away, you win a tempo. The position repeats. You give a check, go back, push forward. Give a check, go back, push forward. Easy, easy technique, right? So where's the difference? Where's the difference? So let's say, where's the position? Yeah, after king g8, rook g7, king f8. So pawn on h4, pawn on h5. So what? White plays here, and the big idea is to go king g4, king f4, h5, h6, and just promote the pawn. The king is cut off. That's all you need to know. With a pawn on h5, you don't have this option. So let's say we have this position. I just played h5. Terrible mistake. So I'll play here, rook g5, I'll go here. And there's just no way. There's just no way you can do this. So instead of this, you could try to do something like this. This, I'm trying to cut off the king. And the king is back. And the king is back. And you're keeping the bishop on the b1, h7 diagonal. But don't mix it up and don't position it here. This becomes lost. And you already know the technique. Check, here, here. You don't let the bishop to go back. I know this is probably the trickiest of them all, but if you know the principle, it's much more easier. And now you understand why the pawn on h4, it's winning. And with the pawn on h5, it's draw. All right. Let me show you another position. So we're gonna now slightly change the topic. We're gonna move to the knights endgames. They're very much fun. So let's say we have this position. The pawn is a3, king b3, king is very far away. Now the question is this a draw or not? Do you know it? It doesn't matter who is to move. Yeah, endgames, they require trumses. They require very good knowledge. Pawn immediately says this is a draw. Yeah, but you know, I've seen even people who are still thinking here. Not really sure, because this pawn on a3 is so far advanced, but this is quite a paradoxical position. The knight takes a good care of the a3 pawn. Yeah, so this is a draw. It doesn't matter who is to move, because a2 obviously would be knight c1, knight a2. So let's say king c3, king c2, king b2, king c3. There's just no way. There's just no way. And maybe this is the trickiest attempt. So instead of knight c5, knight b3, which would lose, knight b4, you're still stopping the pawn. So king b7, king b2, king b3, and again we're back at this idea. If you notice this idea from afar, you already know I can safely go here. You had it. Passport had it once in his game. Okay, I see that. Yeah, this is very, very important position. All right. Let me find another. I think I had it here. Oh yeah, this is lovely in the game. I just love it. So we're gonna have a study. So the pawn is h3, knight h4. Here. King e1 and bishop a4. So what's the idea? What's the big idea about this position? So black is threatening to play king g2, knight g2, close the bishop, and promote the pawn. Pass pawn, once you learn the endgame idea, it always stays. You know about the critical endgames. I would like to keep the idea to revisit them from time to time, because you tend to forget. For example, I was studying the rook and bishop against the rook endgame numerous times. So I studied endgame, some months passed. I already don't remember the technique, so I have to repeat. Occasionally, because that is quite difficult technique, to be honest. Now, I believe I'm very good at it. Very good. So rook and bishop versus rook. The king is cut off to the last rank. I think I have a flawless technique, but this is something that you have to repeat. So the simple ideas like the opposition, the wrong corner, yeah, this is obviously something which probably stays for the lifetime. But some ideas you need to repeat. Maybe somebody needs to repeat also knight and bishop occasionally. By the way, I'm going to talk about knight and bishop in this bootcamp as well. So if you're concerned about this, don't worry. We'll talk about this as well. As a reminder, I imagine most of you already know how to checkmate properly. What is the right technique? So we have this position. So black wants to play king g1, knight g2, h2, h1. Express train says bishop d7, bishop c6, and bishop h8. Do you know the composer of this study? So this is Lloyd's study. Unfortunately I don't know his first name. It's quite an old one. Yeah, refreshing is important, pass pawn, exactly. So bishop d7. First, we attack the pawn. h2, check. So, knight f3, that's it, right? It's Christmas. No, it's not Christmas. I mean, king e2, you just take the knight on f3. You cannot do that. The queen is lost. So instead of this, king goes here. So the threat is knight g2, close the bishop. So where's the big idea? Check to the king. What do? You take. Now, which is the right move? King f2 or king f1? Do you know it? Yeah, king f2. King f2, knight f5, king f1, whatever, knight e3, king f2. You know what is funny about this endgame? Black is in a zugzwang. I mean, he would love to give away a move. So, like, it's your move. Now you have to move. Now you have to take my knight, or you have to move with the king, but I mean, you have to move. So, unlike the bishop, the knight doesn't have the opportunity to return to the same position after odd number of moves. It's always going to be twice. So after 2 moves, after 4 moves, after 6 moves, it's never going to be odd numbers. 7, 9, 11. This makes the bishop a very powerful piece in the endgames because I can easily skip a move. Let's say I can play bishop d3, bishop c4, bishop e... I'm sorry. Bishop d7, bishop e8, bishop c6. I'm back at the square where I started, and I've changed the number of the moves. So I'm returned after odd number of moves. Knight cannot do that. Hello, Etis. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you? There's no progress. Of course, yeah, of course. It starts with this basic endgame. So you should know that this endgame is a draw. Yeah, because the black king is stalemated and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's probably I should have started by showing this basic example and from this derive the study. So there's, for example, another trick. So let's say king g1 here, knight g2 check. What do? That should be easy, right? King e2 here. Now what is the right move? King f2 or king f1? Yep, king f1. Because again, black is in the Zugzwang. He needs to move. That's good. That's good. Hello, Yavar. How are you doing, by the way? So king f2, knight e3. Now it will be white who is in the Zugzwang. He has to move. And he has to take the knight and the king goes away and you're just letting the pawn be promoted. Yeah, very nice study actually. All right. Let me find what else I wanted to find. All right, let me start with this one. This is one of the basic rules of the Rook endgames. And yeah, so if somebody of you know some simple endgames, I mean, I apologize because obviously we have viewers of various the rating range is quite big. For somebody, some endgames might be very simple. For somebody already, the starting position is quite difficult. So I'll try to start from something basic and then try to expand it to slightly more difficult. So for example, this rook against the bishop and the pawn, I think that was quite difficult technique, to be honest. So I don't even expect that many of you can even easily reproduce it. At least you remember the principle. So that's at least my ambition here. So we have this position. Yeah, a7 wins. Yeah, Zigalde. Yeah, a7 wins. That's good. So a7, that's an easy win. So the idea is this is a check. And I promote. And after king f7, it's rook a8 and the check. Yeah, this is easy, right? But let's say we have a position. We have a position and the king is here. Do you know how this game should end? And if you don't know the technique, it's going to be very difficult for you. Draw. Oh, that was quick by DDR. Hey, Super Genial, you've studied this one. Do you know how to title it? Vancura draw. Very good. Kodek, very good. I see we have some very skilled people here. Vancura draw. That's very good. That's very good. Now it's not to win, Super Genial. It's not to win. But it's very easy to misplay. So the idea is, I'm marching with my king towards the A pawn, and the black king cannot do that, right? I mean, let's say you have the idea, I'm going to play king f3, king e4. We already know you cannot play king e7 because we know this basic stuff. After king e7, a7, rook h8, we win the black rook. So you cannot do that. Instead, there is this very nice technique. Yeah, and I have very qualified chat here. Yeah, what to play? It's the Vancura draw. And this is paradoxical. This is mind-blowing. If you don't know this, you'll never make it. So let's say let's say I'm just doing nothing here. Here, 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 here. I touch the pawn. I want to relieve the rook from the duties. Check. Now I run, but it's gonna be too late. Rook b8. Here. 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 That's it. Resignation. So apparently black didn't know the rule. So I'm just showing you a potential way how you can misplay this. And now you'd have to know. Attack from the side. Very difficult one. Yeah, rook f1, pass pawn, yep. Rook f1, rook f6. And you keep imprisoned the white rook on a8. And this is... you don't know this, so come on. Find this in the game, good luck. So, let's say king d5. I just go here. And as soon as the white king touches the pawn, he wants to relieve the rook and just march forward. What do? Check, 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 check. There's no way. There's no way to hide from the checks. So, check, check, check. I mean, you can give a couple of checks, but you can just go back. Rook a7, it's okay. I mean, king g6 doesn't change anything. The white king can never hide from the checks. How far? I think Zwan and Mir. As long as it doesn't touch the pawn. When it touches, no, this is the critical moment. When it touches the pawn, it means I want to relieve the pawn. I'm sorry, the rook from the defensive duties. So this is the moment when you start to check it. If it doesn't touch, you can just sit and wait. By the way, about endgames, that's probably the most difficult part. Sitting and doing nothing. Yeah, because we are taught, most of us, that we always should have a clear goal, we should be active, we should be spending time. And in endgames, a big part is deliberately wasting time. So that's why some positions are so difficult to play. About the a7, yeah, that's a very good question by Express Train. So what happens if white plays a7? I probably should have started with this one. Because after rook a6, rook a1, there's just one rule. Don't allow the white king to touch the pawn and free the rook. That's it. So, king b6, don't allow, check, check, check. Whatever, you can make as many checks as you want, just go here. That's it. This is an easy draw. But let me tell you honestly, there's a lot of important stuff happening elsewhere on the board, and there might be something else happening at the king side. So here we have nothing, and this is easy. But if I add 1 pawn each, 2 pawns each, 3 pawns each, I mean, it changes, and you constantly have to reevaluate the consequences. So for example, let's say I would have, let me put a position. I was playing against one of the leading Swiss grandmasters, Sebastian Bogner. Last Sunday, we had a great blitz match, and we had one blitz game like this, and I was on the defensive. So we had this position. Something like this. Rook was here, pawn was here, the rook was here. Now, so we have 3 pawns each at the king side. Now the question is, can I push a7? Because we have more pawns, and the pawn on a7 forces the black king to stay on the defensive. He cannot come closer. So the white king cannot go to the a7 so easily, because this will cost me some pawns here. So it's not so easy. Now, I think that was a very good attempt. So let's say black is doing nothing. Wait, I think the king was elsewhere. Okay, doesn't really matter. Here. Okay, this is probably a draw. I just wanted to show you this idea. It's still entirely possible that white might try to win this. Revisit the Cochrane defense and Lucena possession. To be honest, Express I'm not so good with the names. What is the Lucena is titled for many possessions. Which one of them is it? I know that De La Villa is referring to them quite a lot. I think so. This is Philidor position, this is Lucena position, this is Cochrane position. I don't remember. All I remember is the Vancura draw. Yeah, this I know. I mean by title. Yeah, the bridge. I'll show you the bridge. Don't worry about this. Hello, Flash Steel. How are you doing? Yeah, so it's not really so simple. I just want you to show that it's tricky. Putting the pawn on a6 and a7. I actually did more about the Rook endgames in my special Rook endgames. You can find it in the playlist of my YouTube channel. I've created a separate playlist for the boot camps. I think that was actually the very first topic, Rook endgames. So I was showing various examples. And yeah, probably you can find them. Otherwise, I mean, I cannot explain everything in just one camp, right? So I want to show in this endgame, in this boot camp, the most essential endgames. So it's going to be like jack of trades of everything. So it's going to be something like from the pawn endgames, it's going to be something from the rook endgames, the bridge, how to win rook and bishops versus rook, that's very good. So how to checkmate knight and bishop, and how, for example, to win queen versus rook. How do you know this? Not so easy, right? So that's my ambition with this one. So, of course, if I could make a separate bootcamp, and I did, about the rook endgames, a separate bootcamp about the pawn endgames, a separate bootcamp about knight endgames. There's so many interesting ideas I could show you. So that's probably for the future. All right, let me see what's the next thing I wanted to show you. All right, I'll start with this one. Since I've started to touch the rook endgames, so let me put this position. King goes here, 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 and here. I think so. Yeah. And what is the move? Now. Hello, Lolly. Yeah. Chessbrass have an anniversary as well? Wow, 6 years? Unbelievable. 6 years. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, for me it's just gonna be 1 year. 1 year this Sunday. So this position. we have two moves. We have Rook B8. Why Rook B8? I think Rook C8 or King G5. I think it should be either Rook C8 or King B5. King G5, I apologize. But the question is, where's the difference? So let's say, let's start with race with the king, because that's something where you cannot make a mistake, right? So King G5, here, 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 attack, here, here, and here. We're just in time. So King G5 is good. Now, do you know why Rook C8 is wrong? Because that's seemingly the same idea. So Rook C8, so there's the big idea. I just push it. Here, here. We still make it, right? Oh, we have so many skilled people here. Unbelievable. You very quickly recognized. Yeah, King C3. Yeah, that's insane. So the king goes in front of the passed pawn. Yeah, this is what we call the shouldering. So what is the shouldering? It means exactly what it means. I take a shoulder and I push my opposing king away. So with the shoulder, you are not coming closer to here. And shouldering, yeah, Lali. And shouldering is a big topic. In the endgames. It's exactly like the Zugzwangs. So it's exactly like triangulation. And shouldering is something which you'll, I don't know, never see in middle games. It just doesn't exist, almost. I mean, I don't know. I would have to seek some very rare examples. In endgames, shouldering by the king is a huge topic. So where's the idea? After King C3, King G5, King here, here, and C3. So there you go. That's our shoulder. We are not letting the white king closer. So let's say white gives a check. What do you do here? You still keep the shoulder. King E2, never block the pawn. Now you don't block the pawn. Yeah, King E2 is Vanemar. Yep, that's very good. Yeah, very good. Here, C2, here, and easy draw. So that's quite paradoxical. The king actually can shoulder white for a long time. All right, now I'll show you a famous position for the skilled people here. I'll ask you not only what is the best move here, I'll ask you who composed this. Now, who composed this? Unbelievable. Rook D2 instantly. And who is the composer? Reti, yeah, that's very good. Yep. Yeah, Richard Reti, the judge legend. But where's the idea? Why Rook D2? Yeah, shouldering is Zora. Yeah, a big topic. And something that many people keep misplaying all the time in endgames and don't think about this. Yeah, you lose a tempo. And again, losing deliberately a tempo is something which is just not existent in openings. I mean, will you play an opening and deliberately lose a tempo? Why? Why would you want to do that, right? In endgame, let me show you what happens if white, without thinking, plays Rook D1. Because that's the natural move. And let's say somebody in a very similar position could make, even a very good player, could make this move without thinking. So Rook D1. Hello, JP. D4. And what is paradoxical about this position? White is in the Zugzwang. He is in the Zugzwang. I mean, he has to move. And the black king is in the opposition. So let's say we go here. Now a big mistake would be king e4. That's a big mistake because here, 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 well, it's just in time. So instead, black plays king d5. That's opposition. So what do? King c7. King c5. Maybe king e4 already was possible, I don't know. But this is just what I like about this position. And rook d2, rook d3, white loses a very important tempo. So let's say now we go here, here, and the rook is under attack. What do you mean? What do you do? Miss, how do you do it? So that's the reason. That's the reason why Reti made a study about either rook d3 or rook d2. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. And after d4, rook d1. Crazy, paradoxical, but it works. Now black is in a zugzwang. So let's say last attempt. Yeah, okay, it doesn't even work. Yeah, king d5 is just king d7, king e4, and that's it. And that's it. Crazy. All right. Another important technique in the endgames is cutting off. Cutting off the king. Very quickly I'll mention it. Yeah, maybe I'm talking too much about the rook endgames because there's other endgames I want to touch as well. So black is marching here. Again, for skilled players, this is easy. It's very easy to misplay this. Yeah, rook g4. What? Yeah, what? No, yeah, we're not rook g4. did you? Yeah, rook g5. Yeah, rook g5. It's not rook g4. I understood what you meant. So instead, let's say we could try to stop the pawn by just going here. Black easily... Oh, wait, it's still rook g5. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So black easily is marching forward with a pawn. And if necessary, is shouldering the white king. So white king will never get past this barrier. Yeah, so the right technique is rook g5, and the king very slowly gets here. Because after a3, yeah, sneak attack, expert strength, exactly. And that's it. This works only if the king has not crossed, if it cannot go to the 4th rank. If the king would be already on b5, that would be a draw. All right. Oh, wait. Yeah, this I want to show you. Now, this is going to be tricky. So now we have a choice. We have this position. Do you know how many people are misplaying this position? Many. So we have a choice. We can play h7. We can play king g7. And even after the correct move, people keep misplaying this. What do you think? Hello, Birdsmith. Yeah, you missed something. But there's something left as well. Yeah, why king g7? Because after h7, check, here. A very nice technique is king f7. You cannot queen. Because white loses the queen. Instead, white could try to put a knight. But with the knight in the corner, this knight is lost. So for example, king h7, even if you don't see the forced win, all you do is give away a tempo. Remember this principle, just give away a tempo, just like that. So let's go back. After king g7, what happens if I give a check here? Rook h7, what do? King g8 or king g6? Very good, Zvanomer. Very good, Javor. Yeah, king g6. Keep the shoulder. So king g8 would be a bad move. We again get the same position. So a8 queen. I'm sorry, I keep misspelling these. Unbelievable. h8 queen is a mate, and the knight. This knight is lost. Yeah, we already know this technique. So the right technique is going back. So king g7, and now the final trick after rook g1. Where do you go? You have two choices. Here or here. King f8, very good. Yeah, very good. So king f8, king f6, here, here, here. Black is not in time. So this is again easy endgame, but for some reason people keep misplaying this all the time. All right, you think you're good? I'll show you something more tricky. King is here, and black is the move. Hey, Birdsmith, just stay here. I mean, you can always watch it later as a video on demand. It's always better to interact with the real thing, right? When it's possible to ask the questions on live. Yes, of course, if you have some questions, I'll gladly answer them. King d3, rook f3. Rook f3, Mifra. Unbelievable. Do you know this position? That's a crazy move. Yeah, I assume you knew it. Alright, that's good, Birdsman. So, alright, yeah, but if you don't know it, it's virtually impossible to pick this up, right? They would pepper your games that make GMs cry or laugh. That was a little pun. So yeah, why rook f3? Rook f3 is insane move. Insane move. Yep. You want to stop king g7, and that is paradoxical, because you would think that white wants you would think that white wants to march forward with the g pawn because that is the most advanced. Nope. We are still using the shouldering. Do you remember that? So let's say I'll play rook g3, the obvious move. Yeah, white is going up. Yeah, sorry about that. There's still the notation, by the way. Hope you can see this. So yeah, g7, that will be a big mistake. Here, here, here. Now this is the position, again, which you should memorize. White cannot progress. There's nothing white can do. You just sit and wait. Just wait. Don't go with the king where you don't have to. Just wait. There's nothing happening here. And after king f7, rook g1, finally queen, takes, king f6, easy draw. But there's one major problem with the plan. It's king g7. So white changes the passed pawn. And now this pawn is advancing. So this is why you need to know this very difficult move, rook f3. I would actually give it a double exclamation mark. It's so difficult. And the point is, so king g7 is impossible. G7, now I go it back. And we reach the same position. We already know how to draw this. But the fun part is also still here. So let's say after rook f3, here, here, and here. Now what? This technique, yep, very good. Rook g5. Zvaneman, very good. Rook g5 is something which also people tend to forget. This intermezzo check, which changes everything. So rook g6, f7, that actually awfully looks like to be losing position, to be honest, because after rook g6, f7, I don't think I can stop the pawn. Good evening, Annette. So check, 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 and that's it. That's it. Yeah. So the a pawn, f pawn advances. Yeah. Speaking about this one, actually, I remember. Let me try to compose it from the memory. So what was it? It was like this. How this endgame should end? Do you know this? Do you know this study? 1-0? You know it, right? What wins? But do you know the technique? I was so amazed when I saw this for the first time. Okay, you know it. Yeah, this is lovely. So the idea, yeah, yeah, under promoting, yeah. Check. So the king cannot go here. There's going to be a check always. Check. Check. Here. And the last trick, rook e4. And if white queens, this is a stalemate. So instead, white under promotes. Puts a rook. And this one suddenly wins the entire game. It's very nice, really. But I mean, I just remember this this example from the previous example. There it didn't work. I mean, I don't know what should have to be the occasion for this actually to happen in the game. All right. Let me check what else I want to show you. All right. There's one little thing. I think I briefly touched it. So let me go back to the pawn endgames. It's the triangulation. I mean, Dvoretsky in the endgame manual, he explained it very, very in a, I think, not very easy language. So we have this position. White is marching forward. Yeah, under promotion is quite rare. Yeah, Mifra, that's very good. I actually showed two examples how a game transfers to theoretical endgame, and this transposing is probably quite difficult because when you know the position, you've studied it, and when you have to show it in an actual game because you have a similar structure, you have to already recognize the pattern and steer the game towards that endgame. So that could be difficult because very rarely it's just like this. Yeah, it just happens. So you don't have this endgame. Something is happening before. You mean king c4, right? So the triangulation. So why do we need it? Why do we need it? So king d6, c7, there's no progress. So brute progress, brute force is not going to work. King c4, I'm not so sure about this one. Yeah, probably it's winning as well. Yeah. I wanted to show it from a different perspective, but yeah, it works good. You're right. You're right. King c4 works as well. Here. And we reach exactly the same position. We give away a tempo. We want to play after king d8, king d6. And finally, the opponent is in the Zugzwang. Alright. Alright. Now I'll show you the two notorious endgames. So let's start. Knight and the bishop. I hope after this endgame, everybody loves it. Zugzwang, loves it, yeah. Right. I hope after this boot camp you should have no questions. All right. I'll already put the ready position. About the knight and bishop. It's not a very difficult technique. It's one of the trickiest positions. Obviously, engine is laughing always at humans, but people keep misplaying this all the time. So I want to very briefly touch how you can win this. I explain the basic concept. So what do you need to do, obviously, is push the black king in the corner of your bishop. Don't ever try to checkmate the king in the opposite corner, because there is no checkmate. You can try to check it. People keep revisiting this all the time. There's no checkmate. So the entire technique is going to be for you, use your two minor pieces to force the opposing king in the wrong corner. For him, for you, the right corner. For him, in the wrong corner, in the corner of your bishop. And let me show you the moves. So bishop a7, we take away him the possibility to escape towards the queen side. Knight e5, we take away the square. Knight e7. Here, we take away square. Check. Knight f5. And the most difficult part, yeah, that's Ziggle Day, that's very good. Yeah, the W principle. The most difficult part in this position is, remember, you have to give away a tempo. And many people fail here. So they know the W principle. So what's the W principle? The knight is jumping like a W. And for example, in this position, they want to continue, they want to go here, and then suddenly the king. No, but Askaf, actually, I think it's a good idea to force the king to the wrong corner. I think that's a good idea, because it from that moment starts the actual technique. How do you get the king to the corner? That's another story, right? I mean, I could show you maybe some ideas. How do you get it? It's not so easy. I mean, when you play blitz, let's say without increment, I was playing yesterday. I was playing against about 2600 level player online, blitz. He was unable to mate me with something like 40 seconds. I think so. He had 40 seconds. I easily made a draw. Because without the increment, with a lot of pre-moves, not very easy, right? Of course, I understand with the classical time control, plus 30 seconds per move, or even a rapid game, you should be able to do this. But when your clock is ticking, it's not easy. Right. So what do? We are pressing the king towards the wrong corner. So we give away a tempo. That's the most difficult move, I believe. Here, and here. And I think the simplest technique here, what you could try to do, is always try to position the bishop on h6. As long as you do it, it's easy. So check and mate. How did this happen? Let's go back. Do you see the W, by the way? W, W. You see how the knight is jumping? So I think that's a very good idea, actually, to first press the king in the wrong corner. Now you play bishop a7. If the king is still here, just give away a tempo. Just give it away. It will have to go away. So bishop a7, knight e5, knight e7, here, 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 here. I slightly changed the order of the moves. It doesn't really matter. And that's it. That's it. You just toss the bishop over here and deliver a mate. Now the tricky part is what happens. Yeah, it could be practically difficult. Burstman, that's a very good point. It could be slightly tricky if the king is trying to escape. So he's trying to escape to the other wrong corner. Now, the easiest thing for you to remember here is the W still continues. Yeah, it still continues. Nothing has changed. So don't be surprised. And after king f6, the critical move is bishop e3. Yep, Ziegel there, very good. And you continue cutting off the squares. So let's say he goes back here. The W continues. Nothing changes. You keep pressing the king in the corner. If in the middle, okay. So here the same technique applies. The same technique applies, but I think it's very easy how you can try to keep a track if you are doing correctly. Just don't let your opponent's king to escape. That's it. If it's escaping, you're already doing something wrong. So it's very easy for you to keep tabs. First, you know the W principle. Then you know you have to push the king to the wrong corner, and then you slowly take it towards the right corner. I think that's the simplest technique there is. It's a lock, passed pawn. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I'm not very good with titles, so I don't know what's the... Maybe there is a special title for this technique as the lock. I mean, I didn't know that. So, if you're playing from the defensive, naturally, I imagine you don't want to play it from by the book. You don't want to go to the wrong corner immediately. You don't want your opponent to show the perfect technique. So you want to mix it up. You won't make the life for your opponent as difficult as possible. So if I'm playing this position, and this is what I was playing actually in that Blitz game yesterday, I was just mixing it up. I wasn't going directly to the corner. I was just shuffling here and there, a lot of pre-moves, and my opponent just, he even didn't stand a chance. Hello, Zwischenzug. So what happens if the king is in the middle? Let's say I suggest what you could do. Sorry, not the rook obviously, but it's the king. So I suggest you can practice this. You can practice this at home. So let's say you have an access to an engine. These independent programs like Shredder. Some have Fritz, some have Houdini, whatever. So you can set up this position and play against them. And practice your technique. And try to checkmate the engine. So the idea is, obviously, we are trying to push the opponent to the corner. and use the pieces at our disposal and slowly and carefully removing a lot of squares. Let me see if I can actually do this. So very quickly, without thinking, I'll try to bring the king. I'll try to bring the bishop. I'll try to cut off as many squares as I can. So something like here, here. So I control a lot of squares. Here, I don't allow him to escape. That's a good one, actually. Can I actually do this? Not so easy, really, right? So my idea, I want to push him to the right corner. To the wrong corner. And eventually I am going to succeed. All right, here already I can already progress without a W, and I managed to push it there. But I just want to show you. Let's say he immediately runs here. Now what you need to do is remember this winning technique, but it's gonna be slightly from the other side. So you're gonna need to give a check with the knight on. Depends from which side you're trying to mate him. So let's say here, 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 and there you go. There you go. And from this moment starts the technique. So our W principle is going to be 95, 97, 95, 97, as many we need. So it might happen if he would try to keep here. Here, I need to get him out from this corner. Yeah, but okay, I mean, I can still play this. Yeah, I can still play this. Yeah, this is probably faster. But I can do it from this line as well. So let's say I can try to position the knight here. So let's say here, here, here. Give away a tempo. That's it. Now we show the W here. Nothing changes. So it might be slightly difficult for you to show the right technique when you have to checkmate on the right or on the left. But what I strongly suggest is don't waste time on checkmating on the right one, the right position, the one you're looking at, because not always it's gonna work. So when you have opportunity, practice from various perspectives, right, left, up, down, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because you won't have the time to press the king to where it needs to be. You'll have to show the technique where it already is. So for example, here I have to show the W principle while the white king is cut off to the right side. Yeah, Zora, that's exactly, yeah, we want to cover the squares. You don't want the opponent's king to go on. But again, don't forget, an important technique, an important trick is at the right moment give away a move. And this is where many people fail. So I know that many people know the technique quite well because it's, I mean, covered for many years. But they have problems getting to the starting position, pushing the king to the last rank. Now, this is something you can practice. I mean, by watching a lesson, I'm not sure if you're going to do it very good. I think all the improvements come with the practice. All right. About the knight and bishop. Do you have any questions? I was watching a video. There was one guy who was explaining it like a scientific level. I mean, I don't know this. I don't know it so well. I mean, the exact technique in the middle. I just keep it simple. Just push it to the corner, even if it is the wrong corner, and just work it from there with the W principle. That's it. So he was explaining some very deep stuff. I mean, how to do it from the middle of the board, but dumbing it down, it was taking away as many squares as you can. Niklas Kuschenbed did it. Okay. I mean, no, I don't think it was Niklas Kuschenbed, but I mean, many people have done this. How to properly do it. So he did it how to cut away the squares, right? From the middle of the board. I guess I also could record one. All right. Now, Rook and Bishop versus Rook. The infamous endgame. It would be helpful. Yeah. I'll definitely consider this. Yeah. So about the this endgame, so Rook and Bishop versus Rook. So we have a Rook, we have a Bishop, we have this one, and the Rook. So the question is, wait a second, maybe I should I should start with a practical example. I was having once a game, and I'm showing it from memory again. So there was something like this. There where the king was, I don't remember already. So. Sorry. Should have done it vice versa. Sorry about that. Here. The king is here. Whatever the rook is here. Alright. Black is the move. How to checkmate with the knight and the bishop. Yeah. There are many great videos about it. So, yeah, I guess I'll make one myself as well. So, about this one. The question is, are you going to take on d6? So, imagine you have this position. You have the opportunity to take on d6. "11 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay. That's not so long. Would you take in this in this position, take the pawn on d6? We are now watching the position from the black's perspective. So the pawn is marching towards us here. Would you take it? Because the bishop obviously is attacking the pawn, which is protected by the rook. Anybody? Hello? No? Bishop f5? I started with this one because I know it's not a very fair question, but it starts with understanding. Do you know what happens in the endgame rook and bishop versus rook? I like how you said, Askaf. Probably not, but I imagine I would have to. You know, I had this. I have this story. I was playing for a team in France some years ago, And I was playing against Chinese, a very strong Grandmaster Li Chao. And I was leading a very long defense. It took me something like 6 hours. Yeah, maybe 5.5, doesn't matter. So I was very exhausted. And I kept this position. And I know that bishop takes on d6. It is a theoretical draw. I mean, I know this. I've even studied the technique. But you know what was the thought in my mind? So if I'm gonna play bishop takes on d6, my opponent is gonna legally torture me for extra 15 moves. And that means, I mean, if I have on the clock, so we have 30 seconds per move, 50 minutes. He's legally gonna torture me, and he is gonna torture me, definitely. He's not gonna agree for a draw. So I think maybe I could try to not trade it. I mean, I had literally something like 1 minute on the clock. I need to make a decision. I didn't take it. So I played bishop a5, something like this. And guess what? He was still torturing me. So he was still torturing me for half an hour and I lost. Yeah, I lost in the end because he found some interesting, weird exception position with whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just found a way how to lose this. So I would strongly suggest don't do this. So if you know that the endgame is a draw, just go there. And I got this advice from my teammate. He said, "What are you doing?" I mean, after the game, "What are you doing? You know this is a draw." So yeah, I do know it. Then go for it, right? I mean, why you are not making this decision? Yeah, I could not really explain it because he was still torturing me, but in slightly unorthodox position. Right, so bishop d6, rook d6. And about this position, there's two techniques I want to mention to you. I'm going to show you the ideal position your opponent wants to reach and you want to reach if you're playing from the stronger side, and the position you want to avoid at all costs. So it's gonna be, just a second, it's gonna be here, here. The king is cut off to the last rank. Now this, yeah, I found a way to lose. It happens. I mean, he definitely did his best effort. Maybe there was a check and didn't take the... Did I miss something there? Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to show you this example why should you take the pawn or not and give away the piece. So this is the ideal position for the stronger side. So he wants to push the king to the last rank, put the bishop behind him to protect the king from various checks, and actually this bishop is taking away many retreat squares. Not this one, but this one. Many retreat squares for the black king. So that is the ideal position for black, for white. And one thing what you don't want to do at any cost is allow your king to be cut off to the last rank. Logical, right? So how do we do it? There's two techniques. So technique number one, it's the technique of the second rank. So let's say we have the position here. So for example, this position. Now the easiest, I think this is the easiest draw, is, who knows, what's the defense of the second rank? Yeah, second rank defense. Yeah, I see you already know this. Pass pawn. So we play here. It's paradoxical. It looks crazy. It looks dangerous. It holds. So the idea is check, check. There's no progress. Here, here, check. There's no progress. But one of the typical ideas that you want to use it as a defensive resource if by some miracle your opponent manages to do this. Let's say, how was it? Let's say we have the bishop here, and for some reason you're forced to go here. I mean, you don't have to, but let's imagine you have to. Now this is the resource, and this is gonna save you games. Yeah, keep the rook on the second rank, super genial. That's very good. Yeah, so that's it. So that's all you need to know. I mean, this is quite straightforward. So just keep it on the second rank. Just don't blunder anything. Yeah, I think, yeah, it was this position, but I mean, you can give a check. You can give a check, just go back, but you can even retreat here. But this could be slightly tricky. Yeah, so don't blunder, obviously, anything. It's very easy to misplay. So, for example, here, I believe this is already a mistake. Here, here, boom. Oh, wait, sorry, here. Sorry? No, wrong. Here, here. Where's the win? By the way, I don't see it. Check. And here. Easy. Yeah, because our king is cut off to the last rank, and we need to be extra careful about this. So that is the best technique there is. The defense of the second rank. Yeah, pass pawn. The second or seventh rank, it is reliable and possible to go wrong. That's totally right. But there is no such technique which gives you 100% guarantee. Yeah, you can always misplay it. So I just want to show you that this is the simplest one there is, and you should just know the idea that you can always retreat with the king, but normally try to follow to the rule. Don't go to the last rank unless really, really necessary. I mean, normally you're not supposed to go there. So specifically here, you have the stalemate idea trick. So he cannot take because that's a stalemate. So that's the trick number one. The trick number two is going to be slightly more difficult. So you position the rook behind the bishop. So let's say I give a check here. And now this is the difficult part. You don't move the king. I mean, maybe you can actually move it here. Maybe it doesn't matter. You just wait with the rook. He cuts off you to the last rank. And about this position, this is entirely possible. Yeah, rook e6, that's good. Now, I suggest here to follow simple rule when you have this position. Go straight back. Keep the line with the king. And now, depending on which side your opponent is gonna go the opposite. Why is that? Let's say what happens now if we go, let's say, so white goes here and we go here. King c6, you cannot take the bishop. There's a mate on a8. And if you go back, whoa, suddenly you're in a lot of trouble. Check. Shake hands. That's it. The game is over. You cannot play rook d6 because there's a mate. And this position, uh, this is a theoretical winning position. So this is something we want to avoid. So it can be very easy to misplay this, and I suggest to follow this rule. Depending on which side your opponent is going to go, always go the opposite. If he's waiting, if he's smart, you're also not born yesterday, right? So you're also waiting. He's waiting, you're waiting. That's okay. We can wait. And if he goes here, you go the opposite. You go here. But the reason is this. You avoid the matrix ideas. And I'll try to cut you off to the last rank, and now we have this resource. And this resource is going to save us. But you know why not always this works? Because the rook and bishop against the rook can arise from many positions. So you might simply be not ready. You might not be ready to build up a defense of the second rank. You might not be able to build up the defense, put the rook behind the bishop. But I imagine in most of the situations you should be able to build one of the defensive setups. So again, we have this position. Let's say I can make another random position. Let's say we have this position. Let's say this one. Right. So let's say we have this position, and all we are doing here, we are counting time. So if you're playing online, no big deal. The site is going to do it for us. If you're playing over the board, we call the arbiter, and he is counting the time. The 50 move rule still applies here. White can play 50 moves legally, and he should, but normally the position still remains a draw. Specifically here, actually, this is going to be tricky. Check, here, here. Yeah, this is not easy, actually. That was not a good example, I guess. Probably something like this. Here. Now I have to try to escape. Here. And keep your eyes open for the idea that your opponent might try to cut you to the last rank. Actually, here I think, in this position, your best move already is here. I think so. The second rank defense, because you can very easily misplay this. I recognize the idea that this is a stalemate. This is so much more risky. Here, whoops, you're lost. Just like that, your opponent reached dream position. So, for example, here also looks very risky. Check. Here, that's it. Very easy. So actually in this position, the only defense, it appears, is this move. Unless I'm mixing up something, this looks like a reliable strategy. And if he doesn't do anything, you just go back here. If he is waiting, you just go back here. And if he goes here, you're giving this frontal check, and he cannot take it. This is an easy... I mean, how easy it is, but I mean, this is a draw. Yeah. So I suggest you to remember this. The second rank defense is considered to be the best one. For example, have you seen this video how Carlsen outplayed Peter Svidler? There's this YouTube video. I think in the game, obviously that was a blitz game. Svidler had an extra pawn, and Carlsen somehow collected it, and they got to the endgame where Magnus had rook and bishop versus Svidler's rook, and Svidler just got completely outplayed. So he was trying to follow the technique to put the rook behind the bishop. One mistake, that's it, he was done. Very quickly. He knew the technique very well, but Carlsen punished him mercilessly. Yeah, probably. I mean, I could try to find a video for you, but yeah, I guess I guess you can YouTube it yourself. Carlsen, Swidler, Rook and Bishop, Endgame something. Yeah, and you should be able to find it. That was very, very instructive. All right. Yeah, and finally, maybe another important position is which frequently appears in practice is queen against the rook. So queen against the rook. Everybody knows it's supposed to be winning. Okay, maybe that's not a good example. Okay, let's do something like this. How we are gonna win this? You feel more confident, Birdsman. You know, I don't think you should be avoiding rook and bishop versus rook. If you have an opportunity to get something more safer, go for it. But I suggest to avoid these, which I told you this example, these non-standard positions. Because you already know the technique. Rook and bishop versus rook is a draw. Just go for it. Just fix the draw. Show the technique. Instead, don't play some random position which nobody has covered. So everything could happen there. So this is exactly what I did, and I paid the price for it. So this position, white is winning, obviously. Queen is going to dominate the rook. So the technique is quite simple, actually. So we start by marching forward with the king. So let me try to do this. So I'm trying to march forward the king. Check. Here, here, here. And our idea is obviously we're going to try to win the rook. But I want to give you a warning here. Don't mix up, please, this position. Now this would be a very logical attempt how you would want to win the game. Here, here, I've seen this mistake made so many times. People still keep repeating this. So this is a draw. And this idea you should know. So this is a draw, and after king c6, this is a stalemate, and this is not the right way. So you want to avoid it at all costs. A very similar position can arise, for example, here. Yet another funny exception. So for example, this position. Stalemate tricks. How would you play here? So white is the move. What's the first move which jumps to your attention? Super genial. No, not this one. Not this one. Yeah, I know the position you're talking about. I'm gonna show you. That's gonna be ultimately our goal. I think you're slightly mixing it up. Queen of Fate. Yeah, but Queen's okay. Yeah, Queen's. All of those moves are good. There's just one bad move, and it's King A6. Don't fall into this. Yeah, don't fall into this. No, it's not Rook B6. It's gonna be ooh. That's it. Draw. You cannot do anything. Draw. Now this is a funny exception. And the king can never go to the d file. I know it can break many hearts. So don't fall into this. You should already recognize the stalemate idea. You should recognize this strange exception. So your goal, what do you want to achieve? You want to reach this position. And so this is your ideal setup. So there's no stalemate. Your opponent doesn't have any tricks, and you want to separate the rook from the king. So that's your ambition. You're gonna checkmate. I mean, you're supposed to win the rook first. But the problem is, you might have a move here. So what do you do first? You give it away. Check. Probably the simplest one is queen d5. Rook g3, this is easy. The rook is falling. Check, 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 rook is falling. So instead of this, if he goes here, queen a5. So you made a triangle, queen d8, queen d5, queen a5. So queen, just like the bishop, is able to make odd number of moves. And that's a very powerful technique in endgames. You're just giving away a move. Your opponent is in a zugzwang. Because again, if black would be sitting here not making a move, I think that's a fortress. So you cannot win this. So here, black tried to go here, and this rook should be lost very quickly. Check. If here that's a mate, let's say here, check, and the rook falls. It really depends where the black rook is going. You're just trapping it this way. The same applies if he goes whatever here. So you're capturing it anyway. Check. It cannot go here because there's going to be a mate. Check, 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 check. Boom. So the same technique. And maybe it's easier said than done. But I imagine having a clear picture to what position you're aiming at is gonna allow you make your life a lot more easier. And there's, by the way, this, I'm not sure if you know it, there's this quite tricky defense, the 4th rank defense. How black can try to be very creative before and try to hold this, but it doesn't hold obviously, but I'm not gonna talk about that today. So everybody normally is retreating to the last rank, and this knowledge alone should be enough for you to win the game. So you're aiming to win the rook and try to separate the rook from the king, and ultimately the computer defends very annoyingly by jumping with the that means you have to practice your technique. I mean, what can I say? It's not easy. Actually, I think that's a lovely idea, to practice your skills against an engine, against a computer. This is something I already mentioned before. For example, you can practice against a computer, knight and a bishop. You can practice against a rook, queen versus rook. I mean, this is interesting. Maybe you'll find that your technique in certain positions is not as good, so you just need to spend more time to practice this. What I want to stress out is it might not be enough by just watching a boot camp, right? I mean, you just need to study this yourself as well. You need to physically move those pieces, and this is how you memorize this. So at least I hope that after this boot camp, you'll remember the principles. So you remember what you're supposed to do, and then during the game, for example, you get the rook and bishop versus rook, or you now you remember there is the 2nd rank defense, there is this ideal position for the stronger side, there is this technique of putting the rook behind the bishop. How to practically apply this in a game, I guess you'll have to figure out yourself, but at least I hope you'll have a better understanding. Right. Yeah, about the I was thinking to do about the bishops as well, but Vocal, yeah, you just completed your first knight and bishop mate. Congratulations. Was it thanks to me? Okay. Knight and king versus rook and king. Oh, but this I think I already showed, didn't I? Maybe I could very briefly mention what happens rook and knight against a rook. Very briefly, because I mean, there's no real technique, unlike rook and bishop. This is quite a big technique. So let me show it to you. About the bishop endgames, I just realized I'm gonna make at some point later a special boot camp about the bishop endgames, because I don't think I had it. I had the rook endgames, I had the pawn endgames, now I have this essential endgames. And bishop endgames, I was thinking to include this in this bootcamp, but I just realized it's slightly different topic. There's a big, huge topic about this Zugzwang, and there's this big, huge topic about opposite color bishop endgames, and yeah, I think this would make a very interesting bootcamp. Not the next one, maybe at some time later, because I like to mix the ideas and revisit endgames at some point later. Oh, it worked after my suggestion. Okay. I already feel proud that I managed to improve somebody's technique. Vocal. That's good to hear. All right, so about the rook and knight versus rook. All you need to know don't blunder any fork. That's it. That's all you need to know. Don't blunder any fork. So the best technique is keep away your rook from the checks as far as possible and from any forks. The main idea, what probably your opponent wants to achieve, is this position. But to be honest, I mean, I don't imagine how you can even reach this. But I mean, you can reach this, but it's gonna be you to move. So the idea is rook g4 mate. So the knight takes away the retreat squares. Rook delivers a frontal check. That's a mate. But since you are the one to give a check, I imagine. I'm sorry. Yeah, check, check, check. As long as you won't blunder this, you should be doing very good. Just don't keep the rook somewhere close your king. That would be a mistake. And just put it as far as possible and give a lot of checks. Set the counter to 50 moves. Check, 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 check. Don't miss a blatant mate. Don't miss a fork. That's it. I mean, there's no technique. There's no technique, literally. And of course, yeah, of course, don't go. Don't allow your king to be cut off to the last rank. It's still a draw, but I mean, you don't need to make it slightly more difficult. That's it. About other endgames, is the wait, I promised you to show the bridge, didn't I? I promised you to show the bridge. That is one of the most important endgames. So yeah, I guess I could show it to you. Okay, let me start with this one. Let's say here. Let's put it here. here, and here. Lucena Bridge, Philodor Bridge. How many bridges? I don't know the title. Yeah, so the idea is very simple. You want to get the king to the last rank, put the pawn on the 7th rank. Oh, wait, bummer. I think I did it wrongly. Bummer, okay. So again, you want to put the king to the last rank, pawn on the 7th. Many people keep misplaying this position. The Philodor position, I mean, it's commonly titled as the bridge. So I just like the title. So many people keep misplaying this position for some reason. There already is a simple win. Now you just play Rook G1. This is a faster way. Here, check. So that's why the best technique, the best defense is take away the white rook, the opportunity to control the G file. I've seen many people mistakenly trying to build the bridge at all costs, and while they don't take care of this G file. So I mean, you can give a check first, it doesn't really matter. Then you can play Rook G1, king goes here, queen, that's it. So this is why the best defense is position the rook here. Now, normally, what do we want to do? Of course, we cut off the king by 1 rank. Normally, we'd want to play here, here, build a bridge, and promote a pawn. This is Lucena, okay. Oh, what is the Philodor then? Like I said, I mean, not very good with the names. So since this move is impossible, because the black king is directly challenging the rook, what are we doing? We position the rook first here, so that the king cannot attack our rook. If he goes away from the G file, we immediately take the G file. So that's the fastest win. So we are just going to play here, queen. So let's say he's waiting. Now the king comes out. It comes out. We want to promote. So this is the idea. And after a check, this is the bridge. And the black king cannot stop the pawn in just in time. You could be tricky if you're a defender, and in this position, play here. Now this trick I suggest you employ if you're playing against somebody who doesn't really know perfectly the technique. So you can improve the bridge. You just play here. You're threatening to position the rook on f5. That's the same. So check, here, check. Not a check, but whatever. That's it. The f-pawn promotes. Another trick from the opponent might be to play king c6. You can already give a check if you want to cut off him from another file. But the easiest one is position the rook here and just promote the pawn. So that's why the rook stands so well here. The black king cannot take care of both squares, of the d8 and the d4 square. So again, the bridge, it starts. Put the king on the last rank. Position the pawn on the 7th rank. Cut off the king as far as you can, and then play here, 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 and cover with the checks. If your opponent allows it, you can improve the bridge by pushing forward the rook. That's it. That's it. I mean, there's not much to talk about this position. There's obviously some variants. So what was the filler position again? Defending kings and queening square. Ugh. Can you give me a notation? Where should that position? A sample position. Defending. Just give me a sample position. I don't get it. My brain is not functioning. Rook pawn versus rook. You mean this one? This is what you mean? I mean, I know most of you understand it. I mean, just never know somebody who is watching, he doesn't understand it. So that's why the title of the bootcamp was the most essential endgames. So bridge is one of the most essential endgames. Some of them are very easy, some of them are not very easy. Pass pawn. Can you give me an example? I don't follow. Should I Google it? Oh, thank you. King e5, just a second. King e5. Rook a7. How king e5, e5? Ah, you mean this one? You mean this one? Yeah. I was confused because I know several positions with their title as the fielder position. You mean I was reading the De La Villa's book, and he was having these titles. There's Philidor's position, there's Cochrane's position, there's, imagine yourself, Laskar's position, there's Capablanca's position, there's Reti's position. Oh my goodness, I just don't remember them all. I remember some of them. Lucina, it never really stick to me. So Lucina, okay, I was told from the childhood it's the bridge. That's it. I just knew it. It's the bridge. Yeah. All right. So the idea obviously is cutting off the pawn going forward. Yeah, breadcrumb. I like it as well. A birdsmith position, yeah. So this is an easy draw. Ah, by the way, I was mentioning this. Yeah, I told you. Yeah. So the bridge is called the Lucina as well. So some positions have more titles. So I want to mention one little thing. I think I already mentioned this in the Rook Endgame bootcamp. So this is an easy draw. But do you know what happens if white is the move? Do you know the valuation of the position? So white is the move, not black. What do you do here? White doesn't win, Yavar. This is still a draw. But this is going to be slightly more difficult. So, yeah. So king e6, no. King e6, you just still give a check and use the same fielder position. That's the same. But the tricky part is king d6. And after king d6, now this loses. Yeah, but I was talking about this in the Rook Endgame bootcamp. But the trick is, you want to position the rook behind the pawn. And now after the check, there's no progress because the black rook is positioned exactly where it wants it to be. And the final trick is this one. And I was talking about this in the Rook Endgame bootcamp. When in such a position, you have a choice. Short side, long side. Always choose the short side. Yep. Yeah, king of 8 still a draw. Always choose the short side. And why is that? Why is that? So, after king of 8, here, 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 you have the side checks. This is another position which I was mentioning in the Rook Endgame bootcamp. I'm not going to repeat it here. So you're just going to give a lot of checks on the side and follow one simple principle. Don't allow the passed pawn and the king land on the 8th and 7th rank. If you do that, you're lost. That's it. It's so simple. King on e8, pawn on e7, you can resign. You cannot allow that. So what happens if the king goes to the other side? Maybe actually this is yet another important position. I think here it still might be a draw. I'm not sure actually with the central pawns. We can still try to give the side checks. But the idea is maybe I'll show you from a different perspective. So it's slightly easier for you to understand the concept. So here it's going to be easier. And now short side is obviously a draw. King g8, rook a8 check, king h7, rook f8, rook a1, side checks, a lot of checks. So now this one is a terrible mistake. I go here, and this is what I call it is a triangle. And I mentioned this in that Rook Endgame bootcamp. So the idea, you should remember this position by heart. This is winning easily. So we are going to play king g7, king f7, and we are back to the bridge. And there's nothing black can do. So he waits. Here. Oh, sorry, what did I do there? Here. King g7, yeah, king g7, of course. So king g7, here, f6. And probably the difficult move here is king f7. A rook goes around, and you start building a bridge. And your opponent is gonna miss these side checks because you have not enough lines there. So that's the major difference. So that's the major difference why you're supposed to go here. You're supposed to go here. And while your opponent still might try to do this, and if you're oblivious to the idea, you might still lose this. But here you have the idea to give side checks. And this is, it is an easy draw. It's not very difficult. Check. Maybe it doesn't really matter. Check here, whatever. Doesn't really matter as long as you don't blunder the rook trade. Here. What did I do here? Okay, check. Here, here. Just remember the principle. Don't allow the white king to go to the f8 and the pawn on f7. That's it. That's it. So here. Who is to move here? Okay, f6. If you have to move, move with the king. Here, rook e8. This is a draw. Because the pawn is not advancing. If you'll make a mistake here, you'll play something like this. That's it. This is lost instantly. All right. Yeah, so always go for the short side. And you can use this. Yep, Bob explains that's very good how you said it. Short side defense to prevent the Lucina possession. Or the bridge. Yeah. Otherwise, again, King E8. This leads to the triangle. Triangle leads to the bridge or the Lucena position. And Lucena position eventually leads to our technique, checkmate with the rook. And of course, I mean, if you don't know how to checkmate with the rook, all of that is irrelevant. And I think a good technique should have solid foundations. And good chess players have to probably from the start have the knowledge, the basic knowledge how to checkmate. Otherwise, this is why I'm imagining myself, what's the point? What's the point of studying big theory, opening, whatever, if not, if people have problems checkmate with the knight and bishop? Right? I mean, you invest so much time and you get this forced winning position and then it's not really working in the end. So the foundations have to be very solid. So the technique has to be solid. So winning positions is very, very important. So queen against rook, you should be able to do this. I understand it's difficult. Practice it. Knight and bishop, you should be able to do this. Everything else, I don't know what are the other easily winning positions. I guess the bridge. Yeah, the pawn endgames with the opposition, distant opposition. Okay, distant opposition is slightly probably difficult. All right. Did I miss an important endgame? Maybe. I'm pretty sure I mentioned every single endgame I wanted to. Oh no, I didn't want to do 2 knights versus 1 pawn. I didn't know it myself. About the by the way, but I want to mention this very briefly. Very briefly. I know just vaguely the concept. Yeah, this is actually a good addition. This is a draw. Now this you should know. This is a draw. If you add a pawn, let's say here, I don't know the technique. I'll tell you honestly, I've never studied it. This is so rare. It's like 1 out of a million. Something like this will happen, so I never really bothered. So I know the idea, at least theoretically. You have to block the pawn as quickly as possible so that it's not far advanced. And then you try to push the black king in the corner somehow with this 1 knight and then try to bring the 2nd knight. And while the pawn is marching towards the queen, you are... it is very difficult. I mean, I don't argue. I never bothered to study this. I just don't think it's worth the time. Eric Rosen showed this. I mean, it's not even guaranteeing it's winning. It might be, let's say this is winning and this is a draw. So, okay, I mean, I understand the principle, obviously. You just block it. Oh, I'm sorry. You just block it. And then you try to advance, and try to get the king to the corner. Let's say he willingly does it. Yeah, now he did it. And while the pawn is marching forward, you're trying to checkmate. Yeah, at least theoretically I know the idea. How it practically works, I have no clue really. But I've played chess for, what is it, almost 30 years. I never got one position, ever. So far, I mean, maybe fate will come knocking and I'll get in the next tournament out of spite, but no. I never got this. So I think it's much, much more important to focus on the most important endgames. The 2 bishops checkmate. Do you think I know it? Passed pawn. Do you think I know the 2 bishops checkmate? What was the last time I actually checkmated with 2 bishops? Oh my goodness. The idea is you try to push the king to the any corner. I think that should be it. Magadito, about the bootcamp plan. No, I'm improvising. I'm improvising every single time. I'm trying to change the topics because if I did something about boot camps, if I did something about the end games, there's a fair chance next time I'll do something else. So I try to change it all the time, something like once every 2 weeks. Right now, that is the current pace. So if I did an end game right now, probably the next one is not going to be about an end games, but I mean, I don't know. It's just pretty much random. There's so many topics I could talk about. So if you have something, a topic you would like to for me to discuss, I mean, you can suggest it in the Discord channel. We have a suggestion box, and maybe there's an amazing idea which I haven't thought about. There's literally millions of topics, and I could even make 5 boot camps out of this essential endgames boot camp, because that's a huge topic. I can make separate Rook endgames, 5 boot camps. I can make separate boot camp about pawn endgames, queen endgames, knight endgames, bishop endgames, whatever. Uneven material endgames, knight versus pawns, I mean, whatever. There's so many topics. So if you have something in your mind, so definitely you can suggest it. I'll do it. Okay, so what's the technique? Let me try to do this. I don't know. Let me try to do this. So I'll try to activate the king. I'll try to take away as many squares as possible. How does it work even? And I'm pushing it towards the corner. So I'm pushing it towards the corner. Here, I managed to do that. Now I free the square for the king. Wow, I did it. Actually, what was the last time I was trying to checkmate with the 2 bishops? I don't remember this. So, unlike bishop and a knight, you can checkmate in all 4 corners. You don't need the right corner. So again, let me try to do it again. Just a second. I cannot even do this. Just a second. How do I do this? So again, let me try to select this one. Something like this and this. And I'm to move. I'm obviously activating the king. Activating the bishops. Taking away a lot of squares. Taking away squares. Taking away squares. When the king is on the last rank, I just cut off. Where's the win? Yeah, probably that's not the not the fastest win, but I mean, I don't think it really matters. Should be pretty straightforward.